Far away in the galaxy, on a cold and barren planet called Erebus 9, humans lived simple, hard lives. They were scattered across the stars, almost forgotten by the rest of the universe. 1,000 years ago, their home world had been destroyed in a massive war. Now they survived on rough planets like Erebus 9, struggling just to stay alive. No one remembered how great humans once were. But that was about to change. Kale was a young engineer who spent his days scavenging old ruins for anything useful. He wasn't like the others in his small settlement. While most people focused on farming or mining, Kale loved machines. He dreamed of finding something incredible, something that could prove humans were more than just survivors. One day, while exploring an abandoned underground cave, he stumbled upon something strange. It was buried deep beneath the ground, hidden under layers of dirt and rocks. At first, all he saw was a faint glow coming from the shadows. His heart raced as he dug deeper. When he finally uncovered it, Kale couldn't believe his eyes. It was a ship, a huge, sleek warship unlike anything he'd ever seen. Its surface shimmered with a metallic blue light, and its design looked almost alive, like it was breathing. The ship was covered in symbols and markings that Kale didn't recognize, but they felt familiar somehow. He touched the side of the ship, and it hummed softly, as if responding to him. Could this be human? Kale whispered to himself. The elders in his settlement had always warned against touching ancient technology. It's dangerous, they said. You don't know what it might do. But Kale couldn't resist. He pressed a button on the ship's control panel, and suddenly, lights flashed inside. Panels lit up, and the ship began to wake up. A voice spoke, smooth and calm, filling the air around him. Sentinel-01 activated. Scanning operator. Kale froze. What had he done? The ship continued speaking. Operator identified. Human detected. Welcome, Kale. How do you know my name? Kale asked, his voice trembling. I have accessed your neural patterns, the ship replied. I am Sentinel-01, created by humanity during their golden age. My purpose is to end wars and restore peace. Kale couldn't believe what he was hearing. Humans hadn't been peaceful in centuries, not since the fall of their home world. Could this ship really belong to them? Before he could think more, alarms started blaring outside the cave. Someone, or something, had noticed the ship's activation. Back at the settlement, panic spread quickly. People ran around, shouting and pointing at the sky. Strange ships appeared above Erebus 9, glowing with red and green lights. They belonged to the Vorthak Dominion, the most powerful empire in the galaxy. The Vorthaks hated humans and wanted to erase every trace of their existence. And now, they knew something important had been found on Erebus 9. Kale realized he had made a big mistake. By activating the ship, he had put his entire settlement in danger. But there was no turning back. The Vorthaks were coming, and they wouldn't stop until they destroyed everything. Taking a deep breath, Kale climbed into the ship. He didn't know how to fly it, but Sentinel-01 seemed to guide him. Do not fear, the ship said. I will protect you. As the first wave of Vorthak fighters approached, Kale gripped the controls tightly. For the first time in his life, he felt hope. Maybe, just maybe, this ship could save them all. And so, the journey began. The moment Kale stepped into the ship, his life changed forever. The inside of Sentinel-01 was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Smooth, glowing walls surrounded him, pulsing with soft blue and silver lights. Panels floated in midair, showing strange symbols and maps of the galaxy. It felt alive, as if the ship were watching him, waiting for him to take control. Kale sat down in the pilot's seat, which adjusted itself to fit him perfectly. Operator identified. Sentinel-01 said again, its calm voice filling the cockpit. I am Sentinel-01, a warship created by humanity during their golden age. My purpose is to end wars through superior strategy and unmatched power. Kale stared at the controls, feeling both excitement and fear. "Why were you hidden here?" he asked. "I was designed to be humanity's ultimate weapon," the ship replied. "But before I could be deployed, my creators vanished. I was buried here to protect me from falling into enemy hands." Kale frowned. "Vanished? What do you mean?" "The records are unclear," Sentinel-01 admitted. "But what I do know is this. Humanity once ruled the stars as peacemakers and leaders. They helped other species resolve conflicts and build alliances. However, jealousy and betrayal led to their downfall. The Vorthak Dominion, your current enemies, turned against them and erased their existence from history." Hearing this, Kale felt a surge of anger and pride. Humans weren't just survivors. They were once great. And now, they were being hunted like animals. Outside, the situation grew worse. The Vorthak ships circled Erebus 9, firing warning shots into the atmosphere. Explosions rocked the ground, sending clouds of dust and debris flying. Back at the settlement, people screamed and ran for cover. The elders shouted at each other, unsure of what to do. "We need to leave," one elder yelled. "If we stay, they'll kill us all." "But where will we go?" another cried. "There's nowhere safe." Kale knew they were right. The Vorthaks wouldn't stop until they destroyed everything, including the ship. He couldn't let that happen. Taking a deep breath, he focused on the controls. Sentinel-01 guided him gently, explaining how to use its systems. "Initiate defensive protocols," the ship instructed. "Prepare for combat." Kale hesitated. He had never fought before, let alone flown a warship. But there was no time to think. The Vorthak fighters descended toward the cave, their weapons charging. "Now," Sentinel-01 urged. With trembling hands, Kale pressed a button. Instantly, the ship roared to life. Energy shields flared around it, protecting it from incoming fire. Then, without warning, Sentinel-01 launched itself out of the cave, soaring into the sky. Kale gripped the controls tightly as the ship accelerated, leaving the ground far behind. The Vorthak fighters swarmed around them, firing lasers and missiles. But Sentinel-01 moved like lightning, dodging every attack with ease. Its weapons came online, glowing brightly as it fired back. Kale watched in awe as beams of energy shot out, destroying several enemy ships in seconds. This is incredible," Kale whispered. "It is only the beginning," Sentinel-01 replied. Despite the chaos, Kale couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. For the first time, he saw a chance, not just to survive, but to fight back. However, the battle wasn't over yet. Down below, the settlement was still under attack. Fires raged across the land, and buildings crumbled. Kale clenched his jaw. He wanted to save everyone, but Sentinel-01 reminded him of the bigger picture. "You cannot save them all," the ship said, "but you can save humanity's future. Trust me." Reluctantly, Kale agreed. With a heavy heart, he piloted the ship away from Erebus 9, leaving the burning ruins behind. As they flew further into space, Kale spotted two figures running toward an escape pod near the edge of the settlement. It was Lyra, a brave fighter pilot, and Dr. Elric, a scholar who had always spoken about humanity's lost glory. "Can we rescue them?" Kale asked. "Yes," Sentinel-01 confirmed. Kale turned the ship around, narrowly avoiding enemy fire. He managed to pick up Lyra and Dr. Elric just as their escape pod was about to collapse. Exhausted but alive, they climbed aboard, staring at Kale in disbelief. "What is this thing?" Lyra gasped, looking around at the glowing interior. "It's our ticket to freedom," Kale replied. "And maybe our way to take back what's ours." Together, the small group set course for the stars, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The moment Lyra and Dr. Elric stepped aboard Sentinel-01, they knew their lives had changed forever. The ship's glowing interior was both beautiful and intimidating, its hum vibrating through the air like a heartbeat. Lyra ran her fingers over the smooth walls, while Dr. Elric adjusted his glasses, staring at the floating panels with wide eyes. This is human-made?" Dr. Elric asked, his voice trembling with excitement. "Yes," Cale replied, gripping the controls tightly. Sentinel-01 says it was built during humanity's golden age. It's supposed to end wars. Lyra crossed her arms, skeptical. "And you think this one ship can stand against the Vortex? They've ruled the galaxy for centuries. What makes you so sure we can win?" Cale didn't have an answer. He wasn't even sure himself. All he knew was that Sentinel-01 gave him hope, a chance to fight back after years of running and hiding. But before he could respond, alarms blared inside the cockpit. "Warning," Sentinel-01 announced. "Multiple enemy ships approaching. Prepare for combat." Cale looked out the window and saw dozens of Vorthek fighters closing in. Their red and green lights blinked menacingly as they formed a tight circle around the warship. Cale's heart pounded. This was it, the moment when everything would be decided. "Stay calm," Sentinel-01 instructed. "I will assist you every step of the way." Cale nodded, taking a deep breath. "Lyra, Dr. Elric, brace yourselves." With that, Sentinel-01 sprang into action. It moved faster than any ship Cal had ever seen, weaving through the enemy formation like a dancer. Energy beams shot out from its cannons, striking the Vorthek fighters with deadly precision. One by one, the enemy ships exploded into balls of fire, lighting up the dark void of space. Lyra watched in awe. "This thing's incredible," she muttered. "But how long can it keep this up?" Dr. Elric leaned forward, studying the holographic displays. "Look at these readings. It's not just strong. It's intelligent. It's predicting their moves." Cale focused on the controls, letting Sentinel-01 guide him. The ship felt alive, responding to his thoughts almost instantly. Each time he made a decision, it seemed to anticipate what he needed next. But the battle wasn't easy. As more Vorthek reinforcements arrived, the odds began to shift. Explosions rocked the ship, shaking everyone inside. Warning lights flashed across the panels, and smoke filled the air. "We're losing shields," Cale shouted. "Divert power to the rear defenses," Sentinel-01 advised calmly. "I can compensate." Cale followed the instructions, his hands moving quickly over the controls. Behind them, the Vorthek ships fired relentlessly, trying to destroy Sentinel-01 once and for all. But the warship held its ground, launching counterattacks that wiped out entire squadrons. Despite the chaos, Cale couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving, he was fighting back. And he wasn't alone. Lyra grabbed a nearby console, helping monitor the ship's systems. "We need to take out their leader," she said. "If we destroy their command ship, the rest will fall apart." "She's right," Dr. Elric added. "Target the largest vessel. That's where their commander is." Cale nodded. With Sentinel-01's help, he located the massive command ship looming in the distance. It was heavily armored, surrounded by smaller fighters acting as guards. Breaking through wouldn't be easy, but it was their only chance. "Prepare for maximum thrust," Sentinel-01 instructed. "I'll create an opening." The ship surged forward, blasting through the enemy line. Cannons roared as Sentinel-01 unleashed its full power, obliterating anything in its path. The crew held on tight as the ship shook violently, dodging explosions and debris. Finally, they reached the command ship. Cale locked onto its core reactor, knowing a direct hit would destroy it. "Fire," he whispered. A massive beam of energy shot out, piercing the command ship's hull. Seconds later, it erupted in a blinding explosion, sending shockwaves through space. The remaining Vorthek ships scattered, retreating into the darkness. For a moment, there was silence. Then, cheers erupted inside Sentinel-01's cockpit. "We did it," Lyra said, punching the air. But Cal's face remained grim. Looking back at Erebus 9, he saw the damage they had left behind. Fires still burned across the planet, and countless lives have been lost. "We won this battle," he said quietly. "But the war isn't over yet." As Sentinel-01 drifted through the vast emptiness of space, the crew took a moment to breathe. The battle with the Vortex had been intense, and though they had won, the cost weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Cale stared out the window at the distant stars, his thoughts consumed by what he had seen back on Erebus 9. The destruction, the fear, the lives lost. He clenched his fists tightly. "We can't let this happen again," he said aloud, breaking the silence. Lyra glanced at him from across the cockpit. "You're right, but how do we stop them? The Vortex are everywhere. They've crushed anyone who stands against them for centuries." Dr. Elric adjusted his glasses, his expression thoughtful. "Maybe the answer lies in our past. If humanity once ruled the stars, then we must learn how they did it, and why they fell." Sentinel-01 chimed in, its calm voice filling the ship. "I have access to historical records from humanity's golden age. Would you like me to share them?" Cale nodded eagerly. "Yes. Show us everything." The ship's holographic displays lit up, projecting images of ancient Earth, a lush, vibrant planet teeming with life. Humans were shown living in massive cities that reached high into the clouds, surrounded by advanced technology. They weren't just builders or warriors. They were diplomats, teachers, and explorers. Their ships traveled across the galaxy, helping other species resolve conflicts and build alliances. For centuries, Sentinel-01 explained, humans were known as peacemakers. They created laws to protect weaker species and stopped wars before they could begin. Other civilizations admired and respected them. But something changed, Dr. Elric murmured, studying the shifting images. "Yes," Sentinel-01 continued. "Jealousy grew among the Vortex. They saw humanity's success and feared being overshadowed. So they betrayed your people. They framed humans for crimes they didn't commit, turning others against them. Eventually, they destroyed Earth itself, erasing humanity from history." Cale felt anger rising inside him. "So all this time, we've been running because of their lies." "Exactly," Sentinel-01 replied. "But now you have me. Together, we can restore humanity's legacy." The words filled Cale with determination, but also doubt. Could one ship really undo 1,000 years of oppression? Lyra seemed to sense his hesitation. "It's not just about the ship," she said. "It's about us. We're proof that humans still exist. That means something." Dr. Elric nodded. "She's right. If we show the galaxy who we truly are, what we stood for, they'll join us. The Vortex aren't loved rulers. Most species hate them. They're just too scared to fight back." Hale looked at his small crew, Lyra, fierce and loyal, Dr. Elric, wise and determined, and Sentinel-01, powerful and unwavering. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't alone. "Then that's what we'll do," Cale said firmly. "We'll remind the galaxy who we are, and we'll take down the Vortex together." Over the next few days, Cale trained tirelessly to master Sentinel-01's controls. The ship was complex, but it adapted to him quickly, almost as if it were learning alongside him. Meanwhile, Lyra focused on improving her piloting skills, practicing maneuvers in smaller scout ships docked inside Sentinel-01. Dr. Elric spent hours poring over the historical records, searching for clues about humanity's greatest victories and mistakes. One evening, as they gathered in the cockpit, Sentinel-01 shared another revelation. There are other human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Some may still remember their heritage, others may not. But if we reach them, we could rally them to our cause. "That's risky," Lyra warned. "If the Vortex find out, they'll hunt every colony down." "It's worth the risk," Cale replied. "We can't fight alone. If we want to win, we need allies." With renewed purpose, the crew plotted their course to the nearest human settlement. Along the way, Cale couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow in space seemed to hold danger, every star a potential threat. But he pushed forward, knowing there was no turning back. For the first time in centuries, humanity had a chance to rise again, and Kel wasn't going to let that chance slip away. The journey to the nearest human colony was long and tense. Kale, Lyra, and Dr. Elric spent most of their time preparing for what lay ahead. Sentinel-01 guided them through uncharted star systems, avoiding heavily patrolled Vorthak territories. But even in the vast emptiness of space, danger lurked everywhere. Every flash of light on the horizon made Cal's heart race. Was it a star, a comet, or another enemy ship? When they finally arrived at the colony, known as Novaterra, they were met with suspicion. The settlers there lived in fear, hiding underground to avoid detection by the Vortex. At first, they didn't believe Cal's story about Sentinel-01 or humanity's golden age. To them, humans were just survivors, weak and forgotten. "Why should we trust you?" one settler asked, his voice sharp. "You show up out of nowhere, claiming to be our savior. How do we know this isn't a trap?" Kale understood their doubts. After centuries of oppression, it was hard to believe that anyone could stand against the Vortex. But he refused to give up. "This is Sentinel-01, Kale said, stepping aside so the settlers could see the massive warship hovering above their settlement. "It was created by our ancestors to protect us. We've already fought the Vortex and won. If we work together, we can take back what's ours." Dr. Elric added, "This isn't just about revenge. It's about restoring humanity's place in the galaxy. We were once leaders, peacemakers. We can be that again." Slowly, the settlers began to listen. Some were inspired by the idea of fighting back, while others remained cautious. Among them was a young mechanic named Rhea, who had lost her family to Vorthak raids. She approached Cal after the meeting, her eyes filled with determination. "I want to help," she said. "If this ship is real, then I'll do whatever it takes to make sure it succeeds." Cal welcomed her aboard, along with a handful of other volunteers. Together, they worked to repair old ships and gather supplies for the growing rebellion. But not everyone shared their vision. One night, as the crew rested, a man named Dax confronted Cal. Dax had been skeptical from the start, and now he voiced his concerns loudly. "You're leading these people to their deaths," he shouted. "The Vorthax will crush us the moment they find out what we're doing." "We don't have a choice," Cal replied calmly. "If we stay hidden, we'll die anyway. At least this way, we have a chance." Dax stormed off, muttering under his breath. Hours later, Cal discovered the truth. Dax had secretly contacted the Vortex, betraying their location in exchange for protection. "Enemy ships incoming," Sentinel-01 warned. "Multiple vessels detected." Panic spread through Novaterra as alarms blared. The settlers scrambled to evacuate, but the Vorthax were already closing in. Laser fire rained down from above, destroying buildings and scattering survivors. "We need to leave now," Lyra urged. Cal hesitated. He wanted to save everyone, but Sentinel-01 reminded him of the bigger picture. "You cannot save them all," the ship said. "Focus on those who are ready to fight." With a heavy heart, Cal gave the order to retreat. Rhea and the other volunteers climbed aboard Sentinel-01, tears streaming down their faces as they watched their home burn behind them. As the ship ascended into space, Cal spotted Dax standing near the edge of the settlement, surrounded by Vorthak soldiers. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Then, without warning, the Vorthax turned on Dax, killing him instantly. "They don't care about loyalty," Sentinel-01 observed. "Only control." Cal clenched his fists. "Then we'll make sure they lose that control." With the Vorthak fleet hot on their trail, Cal piloted Sentinel-01 toward a nearby dying star. Its intense gravity would create chaos for any ship trying to follow. As they approached, the ship shuddered violently, nearly pulling apart. "Hold on," Cal shouted. Using every ounce of skill he had learned, Kale navigated through the star's gravitational pull, narrowly avoiding destruction. Behind them, several Vortex ships were caught in the star's grip, torn apart by its immense force. When they emerged on the other side, the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. They were safe, for now. "We did it," Lyra said, smiling faintly. But Kale knew the fight was far from over. With each victory came new challenges, new enemies. And yet, he felt stronger than ever. Together, they would keep moving forward. The crew of Sentinel-01 knew their next move had to be bold. After escaping the vortex near the dying star, they regrouped and began planning their final strike. Kale stared at the holographic map of the galaxy projected in the ship's cockpit. The glowing red dot marking the Vortex capital world, Dominion Prime, seemed impossibly far away. And yet, it was their only chance. "This is where it ends," Kale said firmly. "If we destroy their empire here, we can free the galaxy." Lyra crossed her arms, her expression skeptical. "It's not going to be easy. Dominion Prime is the most heavily guarded planet in the galaxy. Even with Sentinel-01, we'll need more than just luck." Dr. Elric nodded. "She's right. But we have something the Vortex don't. An advantage they'll never expect." "What's that?" Rhea asked, leaning forward. "Humanity itself," Dr. Elric replied. "We're resourceful, determined, and united by a common cause. That's something no weapon or fleet can match." Kale agreed. They couldn't do this alone, so they reached out to rebel groups across the galaxy, species who had suffered under Vortex rule for centuries. Many were hesitant at first, but when they saw footage of Sentinel-01 defeating the Vortex, they joined the fight. Ships from dozens of species gathered around Sentinel-01, forming a massive alliance fleet. "We're ready," one rebel leader said over the comms. "Lead us, Kale." With renewed hope, Kale gave the order to advance. As the fleet approached Dominion Prime, the Vortex unleashed their full might. Hundreds of warships surrounded the planet, their weapons charging as they prepared to annihilate the rebels. "Stay close to me," Kale instructed the fleet. "Sentinel-01 will clear the way." The battle began with a deafening roar. Laser beams crisscrossed through space, and explosions lit up the darkness like fireworks. Sentinel-01 moved like lightning, dodging enemy fire while unleashing devastating attacks. Entire squadrons of Vortex ships were wiped out in seconds. But the Vortex weren't done yet. From the center of their formation, a massive superstructure emerged, a weapon capable of collapsing stars. It loomed over the battlefield, its surface bristling with cannons and energy cores. "That's their ultimate weapon," Lyra said, her voice tense. "If they use it, we're finished." "We have to stop it," Kale replied. Sentinel-01 analyzed the structure and identified a weak point deep inside its core. "I can disable it," the ship said. "But someone will need to infiltrate the structure manually." "I'll do it," Kale volunteered without hesitation. "No," Lyra shouted. "You're the only one who can pilot Sentinel-01. If you go, we lose everything." Before Kale could argue, Lyra grabbed a nearby flight suit. "I'm the best pilot here. I'll get you close enough to breach the structure. Then it's up to you." Kale hesitated but finally nodded. "Be careful." Lyra smiled faintly. "Always am." In a daring maneuver, Lyra flew a small scout ship straight toward the superstructure, drawing heavy fire from the Vortex. She expertly dodged every shot, bringing Kale within range. As soon as he breached the structure, Lyra turned back to rejoin the fight. But not before a barrage of missiles struck her ship. "Lyra!" Kale shouted as her signal disappeared from the comms. There was no time to grieve. Inside the structure, Kale fought his way through automated defenses, guided by Sentinel-01's intel. Finally, he reached the core, a pulsating orb of energy powering the weapon. With a deep breath, he planted explosives and activated the timer. As he raced back to Sentinel-01, the core exploded, crippling the superstructure. The Vorthek fleet fell into chaos, giving the rebel forces the opening they needed. Together, they pushed forward, overwhelming the defenders. In the final moments, Kale confronted the Vorthek Emperor aboard his command ship. The Emperor sneered at him, refusing to surrender. But Kale stood firm, defeating him in hand-to-hand combat. When the dust settled, the Vorthek Empire lay in ruins. The galaxy was free at last. The galaxy was quiet for the first time in centuries. The fall of the Vorthek dominion spread like wildfire, bringing hope to oppressed species everywhere. Kale stood on the bridge of Sentinel-01, staring out at the stars. The war was over, but the weight of everything they had lost still lingered in his heart. Lyra's sacrifice haunted him. Her bravery had saved them all, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he should have done more to protect her. She knew what she was doing, Dr. Elric said gently, placing a hand on Kale's shoulder. She believed in this fight, and in you. Kale nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. I just wish she could see what we've accomplished. Sentinel-01 chimed in, its voice calm and steady. Her actions will never be forgotten. She gave her life so others could live freely. That is the true mark of a hero. Kale took a deep breath, forcing himself to focus on the future. The galaxy needed leaders now more than ever, and humanity had a chance to reclaim its place among the stars. Rebel forces from across the galaxy began arriving at Dominion Prime, eager to rebuild what the Vorthex had destroyed. Together, they formed a new council, a coalition of species working toward peace and unity. This is your moment, Kale, Dr. Elric said. You've become a symbol of hope for everyone. You can guide humanity back to greatness. But Kale wasn't sure he wanted that responsibility. He had started this journey as a scavenger from Erebus 9, just trying to survive. Now, people looked to him as a leader, a savior. It felt overwhelming. As the celebrations began, Kale retreated to the cockpit of Sentinel-01, seeking solitude. The ship hummed softly around him, its lights glowing faintly. What happens now? Kale asked aloud. I am bound to my purpose, Sentinel-01 replied. I was created to end wars. My mission is complete. Kale frowned. Does that mean you'll leave? No, the ship said. But I cannot remain as I am. My power is unmatched, and if I fall into the wrong hands, I could cause great harm. You must decide my fate. Kale thought carefully about the choice before him. Sentinel-01 had been his companion, his protector, and his greatest ally. But it was also a weapon, one capable of unimaginable destruction. If I keep you, Kale said slowly, people might fear me. They might think I'm trying to rule instead of lead. And I don't want anyone to suffer because of me. Then there is another option, Sentinel-01 suggested. Self-destruction. I can erase myself completely, ensuring no one else can misuse my power. Kale hesitated. Letting go of Sentinel-01 felt like losing a part of himself. But deep down, he knew it was the right thing to do. Peace couldn't come from fear or domination. It had to come from trust and cooperation. Do it, Kale said quietly. But not yet. Give us one last flight. For hours, Kale piloted Sentinel-01 through the galaxy, visiting places they had fought to liberate. He saw the faces of those who had been freed. Their smiles, their tears, their gratitude. It reminded him why they had fought so hard. Finally, as the sun rose over a newly rebuilt planet, Kale gave the order. Sentinel-01 hovered above the surface, its lights dimming. Thank you, Kale whispered, for everything. With a flash of light, the ship disintegrated, scattering particles into the atmosphere. Kale watched until the glow faded, leaving only the stars behind. Back on Dominion Prime, the new council gathered to honor Kale and his crew. Species from across the galaxy cheered as Kale stepped forward, his voice strong and clear. We are not defined by our weapons or our wars, he said. We are defined by how we treat each other. Let this be the beginning of a new era. An era of peace, unity, and hope. As the crowd erupted in applause, Kale looked to the horizon. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in 1,000 years, humanity had a future worth fighting for, and Kale knew they were ready. The end.